Hey guys, I am back with another CIA Freedom of Information Act release document. What I do is I go in and I pull documents that I find interesting, that I think other people might also find interesting, and I read them so that you can be privy to this information without necessarily doing the research yourself or stopping and sitting and reading these documents, because I know that everyone's busy by design. Our lives are designed that way to keep us busy so that we don't go too far down the rabbit hole or, look behind the curtain. So my goal is to read these, to get them uploaded, get them available to y'all so you can read them and get the information yourself. So you can listen to them and get the information yourself. I do record this live. I am not perfect. I'm going to make mistakes. I don't know how to edit very well. And I'm not even trying to waste my time figuring it out. If you want the information, you can listen and deal with the little hiccups along the way. This particular document is a little different. It's called the Psychotronic Universe. It looks like it's from early 1980s. It was released, approved for release in 2000 by the CIA. This document has a lot of formulas and drawings and diagrams. I've actually already read this entire thing one time and decided to scrap it because it was choppy, and it was the first time I had read it completely. So now I have a little better handle on it. It's still going to be choppy because there are areas where there are formulas and then there's text describing the formulas, and that's not going to come across verbally. I obviously will have a link to this document in the comments. It will be available for you so you can pull it up and look at it. Most people who listen to this aren't even going to understand the formulas that they're showing. So the other different thing that I'm going to do on this one is as I read, I'm going to sidebar a little bit and at least give as much of an explanation of how I interpret this information. Obviously, you can interpret it any way you see fit. And if you have more experience with this sort of thing, you'll probably interpret things differently. I tend to bring things down to a metaphysical place and try to apply them and give like real life examples of what I think this or that thing applies to. I normally just read it once and then discuss it after, but this one, it's just a different animal. It's going to have to be read and discussed along the way. So, and also some of the writing in this one, some of the typing is covered up by stamps, like stamps from the CIA along the bottom. So some of it I can't even see to read. That being said, there is a ton of information in here that I can see and read to you, and it is freaking amazing. It's just mind-blowing stuff. So I'm going to start when I'm sidebarring. You'll be able to tell eventually by the tone of my voice that I'm sidebarring. I will try to tell you that I am, but you'll be able to tell that I'm on a sidebar, and I'll let you know when I'm going back to reading. So again, the title of this document is the Psychotronic Universe, and within the title it says Attraction and Gravitation, where bodies give rise to an inherent, quote, panpsychist consciousness quantity. The word psychist, so that you understand it, because I've never heard that word before now, is spelled Psychist, psychist. I'm not sure exactly what that means, but that's the term. So I'm going to start the reading of the first paragraph. Oh, I'm sorry. This was written by a man named Dr. Shuji Inomata. He was the chairman of the Japan Psychotronics Institute. Here's the reading. The consciousness matter energy triangle proposed by the author, i.e., a formula of the interchange of consciousness, matter, and energy, has had great repercussions in the scientific world, both at home and abroad. The existence of such a conversion formula was predicted by the English astronomer V.A. Fursoff. He stated that, quote, mind, i.e. consciousness, is a universal entity or interaction of the same level as electricity or gravity, and we can expect a formula similar to Einstein's famous E=mc² to exist for it. See Arthur Koestler, The Holon Revolution, published by Kosaku-Sha. That, in concrete terms, is what the author has obtained. The actual derivation of this conversion formula is extremely simple, as shown below, but the influence it will have on the worldview of scientists is incalculable. So, literally, the first paragraph, like, my mind is blown. He literally is saying, he says that the mind, i.e. consciousness, is a universal entity or interaction of the same level as electricity or gravity. I mean, our consciousness is a force of nature. So he goes down into the formula. He shows Newton's formula of universal gravitation. He shows those formulas, blah, 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 blah. I'm just reading. Okay, so after the formulas, he says, this is nothing but Coulomb's, Coulomb is the name I'm trying to pronounce. This is nothing but Coulomb's formula in a vacuum shown in ESCGS units. Expressing this in words, quote, the universal gravitational pull between bodies M1 and M2 is equal to the gravitational pull between the virtual charges Q1 and Q2 given by the equation. Given that the quantity of virtual charge is considered to be the panpsychist consciousness quantity, the conclusion is that the cause of gravity or the attractive force lies in the panpsychist consciousness that a body possesses. Thus, when matter, also known as gravitational mass and inertial mass together, is destroyed through the collapse of gravity, etc., without being converted into energy by Einstein's relationship of E=mc², it turns out that it is being converted into panpsychist consciousness, and it gives a formula reflecting that. Judging from paranormal and non-paranormal experimental facts, it is possible for the panpsychist consciousness, i.e. virtual energy, to be converted into real energy. In that case, if we require that the energy E of matter directly converted into energy be equal to the energy E when it is converted into real energy through panpsychist consciousness, then the conversion coefficient for the panpsychist consciousness and real energy can be summarized as follows. And it shows you a formula. But I'm going to go back where he says, thus, when matter is destroyed through the collapse of gravity, let me go back. When he says the universal gravitational pull between bodies M1 and M2 is equal to the gravitational pull between the virtual charges Q1 and Q2 given by the equation, basically my interpretation of this paragraph is that your consciousness can create the same energy, the same pull as physical so-called matter. What he's calling virtual energy, or Q. It's interesting. The consciousness in these equations is reflected by the letter Q. Go figure. That's interesting, wouldn't you say? So he goes on to say, the formula for the interchange of consciousness, matter, and energy can be illustrated as in figure 1. Thus, the matter-energy conversion is realized as atomic power, and the energy-matter conversion is realized by the creation of electron-positron pairs, aka matter, due to invasion of the vacuum by photons. Similarly, it is thought that the other conversions, consciousness and matter and consciousness energy, are bidirectional. Moreover, at the time of the paranormal powers dispute, it was reported that the mass of a spoon bent by a boy with paranormal powers had decreased by 3 ng. A debate sprang up as to whether such a thing could happen. But from the standpoint of the conversion formula mentioned here, such things are perfectly possible. The mass in question was converted into consciousness. Wow. I'm on like the third page and my mind is exploding. At the time, okay, I'm going to go back and read that sentence again. At the time of the paranormal powers dispute, it was reported that the mass of a spoon bent by a boy with paranormal powers had decreased. He decreased the mass. He turned it out of matter into consciousness. That is how we manipulate and run this bitch, basically. That's what we're supposed to be doing here. We're letting the matter run us, and I think we are supposed to be managing the matter through our consciousness. I'm going to go back to the reading again. The mass in question was converted into consciousness. A similar report by physicists at London University appeared in the British scientific journal Nature. There it was stated that part of a semiconductor material inside a capsule was destroyed under the influence of Uri Geller. Side note, Uri Geller, famed so-called magician, telekinetic, remote viewer, one of probably the most documented psychic telekinetic type person that I'm aware of, at least in our times. Back to the reading. Einstein's relationship E equals mc squared was proved by the Hiroshima and Nagasaki atom bombs 40 years ago, after he propounded the theory of special relativity. Now, with the consciousness plus energy conversion formula, we have entered the stage where it is being applied as a virtual energy device using electrical and magnetic fields. What is shown by the consciousness matter energy conversion formula is that our universe is not only a material universe visible to the eye and tangible, but also consists of a non-material universe. These two universes are mutually connected by the conversion formula. The Eastern world of mind and matter as one, and the Oriental view of the universe as everything is emptiness. Emptiness is everything. Nothing is destroyed and nothing increases. Nothing is born and nothing dies, which is mentioned by Sakyamuni in the Prajnaparanita Sutra, is identical to the psychotronic view of the universe we have described here, and it will have major significance quantitatively and scientifically. Okay, me talking. What is shown by the consciousness matter energy conversion formula is that our universe is not only a material universe visible to the eye and tangible, but also consists of a non-material universe. This is what I call the ether, or I believe Tesla was referring to the magnetosphere, but he also spoke of the ether as well. We live in energy soup. It's a soup that we're in, surrounded by unlimited, or within and a part of. We're not separate from this energy. We are a part of it. Our cells communicate, and they go out and get information from this ether, and they pull it back in, and they go out and communicate and pull it back in. And then as it comes in, the little mini computers throughout your body. Your brain is not the only mini computer. Your pineal gland is a computer, and I believe that you have computer capabilities even in your heart space and your gut. That's probably what the chakras are, if we really get down to it, because our bodies are high-tech, what is it? My friend Becca calls it like DNA skin suits. Okay. We're computerized. We have computer capabilities in our bodies. This ether is where it's almost like where the source code resides. So like when you put a command in the computer, it goes to where its source code information is. I think I'm using that term right. I'm not a computer person. I really hope that you will give me grace if I didn't use the right term, but you know what the fuck I'm talking about. So don't come for me. Okay. It goes, your computer, you put in a command and it goes to the database, or it goes into where the sourcing code is, and it pulls out the information that has been entered into it. And it can't calculate information that you haven't. It can't calculate from data that hasn't been entered into it. Our etheric soup that we're swimming in contains all the information from what people would call, it's the Akashic record. Everything that ever has been, is, or will be, since there is no time, everything's happening simultaneously. All information, everything you could ever need to know, want, see, do, experience, it all already exists in the etheric soup we live in. We just have to go out, and I see it like almost like a circle. Okay, so your part of the circle goes out, it touches part of the ether, it goes out to wherever you need to pull information from, and it finishes the circle and brings the information back into your body, where your mini computers can now process that information. We're swimming in this unlimited potential. The only thing that limits humans is their belief that they are limited. So the next page, I'm going to go back to the document now. The next page of this shows the consciousness matter energy relationship, and it's drawn like a pyramid. And Q, which signifies consciousness, is at the top of the pyramid where the capstone would go. Which I also find very interesting, in that we've got this Q movement thing happening. Q is clearly a large, Q is a consciousness movement. It's obviously a consciousness movement. And I also find it interesting that consciousness is everywhere and does see all things. And Q in this diagram is at the top of the pyramid where the capstone would go, and also where the letter I, or I'm sorry, the all-seeing I is with are the powers that be, whoever they are. That they like to represent that I inside the capstone, the all-seeing I. So this has got me thinking. So the next page is a new section called the vacuum hypothesis, and it's subtitled Vacuum as a Sea of Virtual Positive and Negative Energies. Looking from the viewpoint of psychotronics as a new science, the concept of vacuum, i.e. Dirac's vacuum theory, Dirac is spelled D-I-R-A-C, i.e. Dirac's vacuum theory in physics presents problems which do not accord with reality. As is well known, Dirac defined a vacuum as a sea of real negative energy. But what has been suggested by experiments in psychotronics is that a vacuum is rather a sea of virtual positive and negative energies. Dirac regarded, okay, and after that it shows a formula, but I'm skipping the formula. Dirac regarded the mathematically obtained negative energy level as something of real existence, and assuming the level to be filled by the quote, donkey electrons, as Professor Fushimi Yasuharu, he defined it as a vacuum not itself dependent upon observation. If an electron escaped from that vacuum, its whole could be regarded as a positron having positive energy and positive charge. This is the creation of electron-positron pairs by photons, and he assumed the reverse process was the mechanism of photon creation and the elimination of the electron-positron pairs. However, in this theory, an infinitely large negative energy occurs, so that this cannot be said by any means to be a complete theory, as Dirac himself suggested. I have no idea if I'm saying that man's name right. I'm probably screwing it up. Again, Give me some grace. Above all, the aspects of this theory, which presuppose a matterless ether, do not accord with the realities of the new science of psychotronics. The author's proposal is whether we can take C as it is in number 1, we're talking about a formula again, and consider a further level of virtual positive and negative energies. And then they show another formula. A real negative energy level is possible mathematically, but in the real world, such a level is in fact assumed not to occur and is disregarded. It is as if when we are solving a real wave motion equation, a trailing wave and a leading wave appear, but the leading wave is assumed not to exist and so is disregarded. Let us try considering the creation of electron-positron pairs merely in terms of the real positive energy level and the virtual positive and negative energy levels. It is thought that, first of all, when the virtual level is empty, the electrons release complex energy, also known as real photons and virtual photons. The virtual negative energy level is filled, and then the virtual energy, i.e. the virtual photons, is absorbed. The virtual positive energy level is also completely filled. If we assume this state of affairs, the electrons of the positive real energy level can exist stably without falling into the virtual energy level. Thus, a vacuum is to be defined as a sea of negative virtual energy and positive virtual energy. This may be considered to be the matterless ether. The positive and negative virtual energies cancel each other out, and so an infinity of virtual energy does not arise. Only the finite difference is observed. Now, when the real and virtual photons of energy are driven into the vacuum, normal electrons are created from the negative virtual energy state. A negative virtual energy hole appears, and it displays a positive electrical charge. The remaining real energy supplies its mass and fills the hole created in the sea of virtual energy. But when positrons and negatrons meet and are destroyed, the reverse of the above process occurs, and real and virtual photons are released. In the case of creation and destruction of electrons and positrons due to real and virtual photons, the law of energy conservation is satisfied. On the other hand, it is possible for real energy to be removed from the sea of positive and negative virtual energies, and in that case, proceeding from the theory of infinite-finite equals infinite, it is possible to tap the limitless real energy. The various paranormal phenomena due to the action of consciousness are thus energy-driven events. Boom! Boom! Okay, they proved that virtual energy, which is your consciousness, affects the photons and it affects the equation. That's all I understand enough to say. But I get it. I get the essence of it. I'm an essence person. I get the essence. They can measure the effect of virtual energy, which means they can measure the effect of our consciousness on matter or matterless ether. So, boom! The various paranormal phenomena due to the action of consciousness are thus energy-driven events. And further up, and again, I don't understand a lot of this, but further up, it said, I'm just reading, I'm going back. Suggestible laws that a vacuum, blah, 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 direct regarded, level, blah, blah. Disregarded the creation. he talked about a leading wave and a trailing wave in the virtual energy. And I think, okay, he said a real negative energy level is possible mathematically, but in the real world, such a level is in fact assumed not to occur and is disregarded. It is as if when we are solving a real wave motion equation, a trailing wave and leading wave appear. But the leading wave is assumed not to exist, and so is disregarded. It is as if when we are solving a real wave motion equation, a trailing wave and a leading wave appear, implying that the trailing wave and the leading wave affect the equation itself. Something started it before it started, and there's energy after the fact, which is the trailing wave. I find that very, very provocative. I interpret that to be our consciousness. That's how I see it. So back to the reading. After he says the various paranormal phenomena due to the action of consciousness are thus energy-driven events. It goes without saying that the image of a vacuum as a sea of positive and negative energies also conforms to that of Eastern philosophy, which says that a vacuum is a sea of chi, or air or spirit, governed by the negative and positive principles of yin and yang. So after that, he goes more into drawings and diagrams. But, you know, I feel like this in Omada, this guy, he knew from the Eastern world that he had lived in that there are many things that happen in this world that science can't explain, and our normal laws of so-called laws of physics cannot explain. So he was on this, y'all. He knew going in, you know, which some would say that would affect the experiment itself, but that goes into quantum physics and another conversation. So the next section is called The Era of a New Science Which Can Measure Consciousness Itself. Woo-hoo-hoo, so exciting. Subtitle, The Interaction of Consciousness and Matter, which is energy. So side note, every time they say matter, there's a quotation, the word energy beside of it, because they know that there is no such thing as solid matter. It's all energy, just vibrating at different levels. Back to the reading. Initially, it was difficult to establish the new science of psychotronics in physics. It has, however, become possible to formulate a quantitative and scientific argument concerning the interaction of consciousness and matter, energy. I intend here to discuss quantitatively the interaction of consciousness and matter from the standpoint of a complex theory of thermodynamics and a composite theory of electromagnetics and gravitation. For a concrete model, I shall rely on the combustion of magnetically activated fuel oil. I shall adopt the consciousness energy extraction process. So here he goes into a complex thermodynamic theory and virtual energy. A lot of this is going to have to do with formulas, so I'm just going to read some text. And again, you will have to look at these formulas yourself. In general, in catalytic processes where virtual energy intervenes instead of the Carnot-Clausius type of thermodynamics, the following complex theory of thermodynamics obtains where temperature and heat quantity have been complexed. Blah, blah, blah. Formula, explanation of the formula. Thus, in general, the entropy change can be expressed as the sum of an energy change due to the real state and an entropy change due to the virtual state. Accordingly, the first law of thermodynamics expanded into the complex domain becomes a law of energy conservation, where virtual energy has been added to real energy. With regard to the second law, however, the possibility arises of a reduction in entropy in a thermal isolation system due to the inflow of negative virtual energy, and this fact gives rise to all the phenomena peculiar to consciousness that cannot be conceived of in conventional physics. I gotta read that again. With regard to the second law, however, the possibility arises of a reduction in entropy in a thermal isolation system due to the inflow of negative virtual energy. And this fact gives rise to all the phenomena peculiar to consciousness that cannot be conceived of in conventional physics. Wow. Okay, more formulas. Okay, he says, however, according to the second law of complex thermodynamics, it is possible for a reduction of entropy due to the virtual state to occur in a thermal isolation system, and the constraint vanishes, so that free energy, i.e. energy which can be used, increases. In this case, because the entropy in the external part of the physical world does not increase, there is no reduction in the free energy there. Thus, if we consider only the real world without considering the virtual world, free energy can be created, which is called the theory of created energy. Thus, if we consider only the real world without considering the virtual world, free energy can be created, the theory of created energy. And it goes into more equations. Then he goes into an explanation of the equation. Here, the virtual magnetic monopole can be equated to consciousness. Thus, taking the viewpoint of this theory, even if our fuel oil is not actually activated by magnetism, and even if it is activated by the virtual magnetic monopole itself, which has become detached from the consciousness magnetic pole, it shows that it is possible to extract consciousness energy through the combustion process. What the freak? The characteristics of water activated by the action of magnetism, and indeed the interaction of consciousness and matter, energy, in the brain can be explained by such a paradigm. At last, we in the 20th century have entered an era where we can measure consciousness itself. What? Did you learn about this in school? Because I sure as shit did not learn about this in school. Nobody said nothing about no consciousness, okay? We were not allowed to explore things like that. You just follow the rules, stand in line, you know how it goes. There was no, behave, be a good person. Oh, the realm congratulates you on making an A and following all the rules. Like, no, fuck that. Let's stop doing that shit. Let's get down to the nitty gritty, man. I know that when this realm congratulates me, I call it a realm, capital REALM, that we live in. I know when it congratulates me, I'm like, hold up. It's like, consider the source. Do I really want your approval? Because you suck. And we'll get into later why, not in this podcast, but someday we'll talk about why I think that is. But I need to go back and read that part again because I feel like there's something there. He said, thus taking the viewpoint of this theory, even if our fuel oil, which he was using the fuel oil, remember, as an example. Thus taking the viewpoint of this theory, even if our fuel oil is not actually activated by magnetism, and even if it is activated by the virtual magnetic monopole itself, which has become detached from the consciousness magnetic pole, It shows that it is possible to extract consciousness energy through the combustion process. Guys, now I might be going off the trail here, but could this be a part of the energy extraction process that humans are used as, food for? We know they extract energy off of us, whoever they is. That's another podcast for another day. We know we are used as an energy source. Yes, that's in the Matrix, but it's in the Matrix because someone pulled that information out of the ether, pulled it into their fields, and interpreted it and made a movie about it. It doesn't mean it's fiction. It just means somebody tapped into that area of the ether and brought forth this information to us. You got to stop this shit like, oh, that's fiction. That's not true. And that's not real. Listen, if it can be conceived of by a human being, that shit is real. It is possible. All of these fiction stories and all these, myths and tales and fairy tales, so to speak. No, man. No. Nope. These things are people pulling, basically remembering. That's the easiest way to put it. It's like they remembered a memory that wasn't theirs because they pulled it out of the matterless ether and brought it into their fields and then took the time to write it and produce it and let us see basically what they pulled out of, literally pull it out of the air. Literally. So it makes me wonder if that's how they extract the energy, from us, if that's part of the process. I'm halfway through the paper. I'm going to stop now because I've made this, end up being a little less than 40 minutes. And then I'll do the next section, which just expounds more on what we've discovered today. But the first part of it was really the first half that we did today is just, there's so much there and it's so mind-blowing. And this is information that everyone should at least read. You don't have to believe it. I don't expect you to believe it. I don't want you to believe anything because belief is an anchor. I want you to have an effervescent way about gauging, collecting, and manipulating information. By manipulating, I mean touch it, smell it, feel it. How does this data feel to you when I manipulate it? When I move it in my etheric hands and I spend time with it, how does it feel to you? If you're stuck in belief as an anchor, you lose your conscious effervescence. If you become stagnant and you say you don't let anything else in because it doesn't match what you believe. I think that we should remain in an effervescent state of mind, allowing for new information to come in and to change what we thought even 5 minutes ago, because I have new information now. And my goal is to give you the information. Yes, I put in my 222 cents worth, but I'm sure there are things that I have missed that you heard, probably big, mic drop things that I skipped right over, probably because I don't understand them. Honestly, this is a very deep, very dense for me. I don't have a background in physics, but I just wanted to give you the parts that at least that stuck out to me, but I'm hoping we can have a discussion about the different areas that you found interesting. I will next week come around with the second half of this and that analysis. I am working on trying to get some music to background my readings. Again, I'm not that good at this kind of stuff yet. I'm practicing. I'm getting there. Please bear with me. I also am going to start bringing on other guests who have backgrounds in various subject matters for us to explore our world some more. Because guys, guess what, man? The veils are gone. There's no more veils. There's no more stopping us from knowing this information. It's all available. Maybe they wanted the internet to surveil us, but we used it to find each other and to find information. There's no more 1% anymore. If you don't have information or you don't know things anymore, it's because you're just choosing to remain ignorant. I love you guys. Talk to you next week.